Dark Summers is about this guy named Daniel who gets placed under house arrest after stalking this girl named Mana Wilson. After being placed under house arrest, Daniel then gets a call from Mana Wilson, and during the course of this call, Mana then kills herself. And for some reason, Mana then starts to haunt Daniel. So Daniel and his friends then have to find a way to stop Mana Wilson. The story really isn't anything special. It's not a bad story, but it's not great. It's the normal, typical excuse story that you would see from movies like this. It's not trying to be deep or artsy or trying to be a high level of satire. It's a normal, simple excuse for there to be a ghost haunting these people. One of the bigger issues of the actual plot itself is more the pacing of it. This is one of those kind of movies that the main protagonists are trying to stop the ghost. Now, there isn't usually anything wrong with those kind of stories, and actually some pretty decent movies do pull off those stories, like Insidious. The most important thing you have to do if you're going to do one of these stories is you have to wait until the end before the protagonists try to stop the ghost. The problem with doing it too early is the second they start coming up with a plan to stop the ghost, it usually stops being scary. It turns it from a horror movie into just a normal action thriller. But Dark Summer decides that they want to do that actual stopping the ghost plot about halfway through the movie. And the problem is it's a bit too early. Once that starts happening, the movie kind of ceases to be scary. After they started trying to stop Mana Wilson, I was no longer scared in the movie. The pacing's not the only thing that makes this movie not scary. The horror itself isn't scary. There are a few suspenseful scenes in the beginning of the movie, but the horror is quickly killed off because of this one scene. And it is possibly the dumbest, stupidest, over-the-top scene I've seen in a horror movie in quite a while. Listen to this. Daniel is sleeping in his bed. All of a sudden, Mana Wilson then crawls into bed with him. Daniel then wakes up, pulls over the covers, and he sees Mana Wilson sitting at the end of his bed, eating his heart. It was way over the top, and there was no lead up to it being this stupid, so it completely just came out of nowhere. And it had me laughing for about 3 minutes after that scene was over. And there's one kind of tiny little rule about a horror movie. If you laugh once in a horror movie, the horror movie is no longer scary. It is really hard for you to get re-immersed into the movie and continue being scared if there was one absolutely hilarious horror scene. The problem is that I can't get re-immersed back into the movie. The problem is that every other horror scene is trying to top that last one. So you got really dumb scenes of characters being completely stupid. You got scenes where Mana Wilson's on a wall and just standing there for whatever reason. And that combined with the poor pacing of the movie is no longer scary. And that's the biggest issue, is a horror movie isn't scary. So that basically just leaves Dark Summer into this hollow shell. It has a story that's just used as an excuse, and they could have done something with it. They could have dived into the psychological. Because Mana Wilson does blame Daniel for the suicide, and Daniel then starts to think that her suicide was his fault. That's interesting. You could do something with that. You could have extended this movie's length and actually focused more time on Daniel just kind of seeing things where his friends don't believe him. It would have even made us question if what we were looking at was even real. But they don't do that. They just leave it as an excuse plot. And it's fine if the movie is scary. And it's not. The poor pacing with the over-the-top horror scenes leaves this movie to just not be scary. I think that's the biggest insult I can give a horror movie. It's not scary. So, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!